What do I have in front of me here? First off, I have a new camera that's facing down at the table. Hopefully, resolution quality is better than the previous unboxing playthrough videos I've done in the past. So, I'm kind of excited about this because I've never felt very good about the quality of my playthrough videos, and that means I also did change the camera the camera in front of me here. Hopefully this looks a little better quality. There's a huge learning curve with this streaming stuff if you've never tried it yourself. So with that said, I have a game called Castelnuovo 1539, and this is actually still what I would consider, or what is considered, from the based on what the publisher told me, a prototype copy, because this game will be hitting Kickstarter very soon. So this game has actually not even been fully printed yet, and hasn't even completed its crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. So this is a pre-review of what the game should ultimately look like when it's finally printed. But with that said, keep in mind then, if you are interested in this game, to please follow the Kickstarter and set your calendars for June 17th, as that is the day this game will the Kickstarter for this game will kick off. No pun intended. So I'm just doing a very quick unboxing here. And hopefully we'll actually get this game to the table tomorrow. John from Talking Cardboard has said he would play this with me. It's my wife joined the chat, and thankfully this game didn't cost us anything, because Draco was generous enough to send this prototype copy to Talking Cardboard to share with all of you, and to hopefully generate some excitement for this game once it hits that Kickstarter in a couple weeks. So with that said, let's actually start the unboxing here. And as I was alluding to, this is going to be a fairly quick unboxing because I still have not taken the time to read the rules in detail. I have gone through the rule book. I have a high level understanding of how the game works. But just to kind of set the theme here, I'll just read verbatim what it says in this introduction, because I'm not a history expert and I don't want to mince my words with this. But on August 7th, 1539, the last resistance of the Spanish garrison of the Albanian village of Castelnuovo, or Novi for the Turks, ended after 22 days of open trench warfare and more than a month of battles, skirmishes, assaults, and bombardments. The last Spanish defenders fulfilled the destiny they had promised themselves when they rejected the offers of surrender made to them according to the rules of war by Hayreddin Barbarossa, admiral of the Ottoman fleet and general in charge of the operation. So this is definitely a historical war game, based on, and I'm sure there's history buffs that may cringe at my summary of this conflict, but it's the Spanish Alamo, if you will, because it sounds like the Spanish forces were greatly outnumbered and knew they didn't really have a chance against the Turks. But even knowing all of that, they decided that they would stick it out and try to hold back the Ottoman Empire as long as they could. So in this game, you're not essentially trying to recreate history. There is this understanding that as the Spanish player, you are ultimately losing this battle. But the goal of the game then, as the Spanish player, is to try and incur as many casualties as you can to the Ottoman Empire, and the goal then of the Ottoman Empire is to take over this fortress as quickly as you can. So let's take a minute to actually browse through this rule book. I'm thinking it's actually coming up pretty nicely on my main camera. So I don't even know if I need to go to the side camera. I'll try The side camera actually maybe still is a little better for this. So the total page count here is 31 pages, and therefore I would say this isn't a... On the war game spectrum, I would still say this is a lighter war game, but definitely has a little meat to it. And I'm just quickly breezing through this so you have an idea of what the rulebook looks like. What I really appreciate about these historical war games that take the time to add in this flavor text to, which is, these kind of highlighted paragraph sections. Those are not describing, those are not explaining how the game works, but what they are doing are explaining why certain elements and mechanics are in the game based on the actual historical conflict this game's about. I feel like that almost should be a must. If you're going to design a historical war game, please include educational content for people who are not experts of that historical time period, because that's one of the reasons why I like war games, is I'm learning about that specific conflict. Like I said, it's funny to think that in the U.S. and America, most people know what the Alamo is. It was popular battle in Texas, right? Most people have some understanding of what the Alamo means, but you have to imagine in every country around the whole world, every country probably has their similar Alamo type, if not multiple Alamo type conflicts throughout their history. And I'm not trying to simplify this particular conflict again as the Alamo for the Spanish. That's just my basic interpretation of this conflict. But nonetheless, it really opens your perspective that there's, U.S. history is not the only history in the world, of course. So, and this goes back to 1539. America was, it wasn't really till the 1600s that the first English settlers came to the U.S., if I remember correctly from my history classes. So, what you can see in this, as I page through this history, or the rule book, is a lot of good examples of play, and then a detailed description of the various command cards. This is a card-driven war game. Each player will have their own. It's a 2-player game. I should have started off with that. And it says right on the rule book, 2 players, about 60 to 90 minutes in gameplay time, and then 14 plus for age. So like I said, it's not necessarily a simple war game, but relatively speaking, I would still say it's a lighter war game. And the one game that I will say it almost immediately made me think of was this Fire and Stone game, Siege of Vienna, which was a battle between the Ottoman Empire and the Habsburgs. Obviously, 100 so year. It's funny how timelines work, because this is still the Ottoman Empire, I guess, and 150 years later, there was another conflict the Ottoman Empire was involved in, when the Siege of Vienna. But I feel they're similar because it's a 2-player game with very asymmetric with 2 asymmetric factions, I guess is all I'm trying to say. And I did play Fire and Stone briefly one time with my dad. That game, I would say, is actually even simpler than Castelnuovo here. But I felt Fire and Stone was almost too simple. It didn't really have enough crunch in decisions that I feel it could have had. Which is why when I started reading the rule book for Castelnuovo here, I was pretty excited, because I feel this game offers the right amount of complexity that I was looking for. So, going through the rest of the components of the box, we have the units themselves. The green blocks are the Ottoman Empire units, and then the red is the Spanish units. And as I think I mentioned already, the in this historical conflict, the Spanish forces were greatly outnumbered. Therefore, you don't have nearly as many blocks for the Spanish as you do the Ottoman Empire. So, of course, these come blank, which means there are stickers you will have to put on the blocks, which a lot of wargamers are used to doing. Some probably appreciate that opportunity to put stickers on blocks. I obviously haven't done it yet. Then we have a variety of other types of fortifications and artillery pieces for each side. I'll just take these out so you can see these pieces up close. They're all wooden components, by the way. Here we have the wood. That wooden piece represents the walls that are around Castelnuovo and essentially are kind of serving as hit points that the Ottoman Empire has to destroy before they can progress further into the compound. Next we have these kind of teepee looking pieces, and these represent the I guess the rules say each of them represents one of the 2 points of resistance that each bastion has. And then finally we have just your run-of-the-mill red cube, which represents the Chevaux de Frise, which I wish I knew what that specifically meant, but I'm sure there's a blurb in the rule book that explains in detail. So that's the additional pieces that the Spanish player has at their disposal. And then we have additional wooden components for the Spanish player that I'll show real quick. So the discs actually represent, some of the round discs represent tokens for the leaders that were present in this conflict. And so they do have, the leaders themselves do offer a game impact. And also some of these, depending, again, there's stickers that of course are not on these yet, but then there's stickers representing the fleet, the Ottoman fleet that is kind of surrounding the fortress, and so that aspect of this conflict is simulated in the game as well, because those ships were dropping off the Ottoman units while also providing a lot of artillery fire. And then we have these kind of lightning bolts or zigzags, whatever you want to call those pieces, which represent the Ottoman trenches. So as the Ottoman Empire approaches the Spanish, you can, I think, just put down some trenches to provide the Ottoman Empire forces a defensive benefit. And then finally we have the artillery pieces, and the cannons represent just that artillery for the Ottoman. And actually, I didn't show them, but the Spanish player has artillery pieces as well. And that concludes all the different wooden elements in the game. Hey, thanks, Bodon. I'm on TikTok Live as well. Unfortunately, my chats do not. Anyway, hi Jay. Thanks for joining my TikTok live here. All right, so then let's look at, next we have dice. This is a dice combat type game. A lot of people, not a lot of wargamers I know are not the biggest fans of dice combat, and I for one am a big fan of rolling dice for combat. That's what you're doing in this game when you are attacking. So if that's an immediate turnoff, I apologize, but that's how this game was designed. Okay, so that's the dice. As you can see, nothing real special about the dice that come in this game. Next, we have the asymmetric deck of cards that will determine what you can do on your turn. So I'm going to briefly struggle with these as I try to open up a pack. This is, I guess, would be the cards that the Spanish player would have. And I'll kind of go through these quickly, but you have an attack card, which allows you to do just that as the Spanish player. Essentially move, attack with your infantry or your cavalry units, and this particular card also lets you move your units too before and then attack. Essentially, there's these Camisado cards that I think give you an option of either or. You can attack a zone at a distance of 1 or 2 with +2 to the hit. The Spanish player deals damage first, but cannot play combat cards. And I haven't gone through the attack sequence in Castelnuovo, but there is a sequence, and it's not like simultaneous per se. Certain units get to attack before others, so any opportunity to attack early is definitely valuable in this game. Then you have Bombardment. So this is the card if you want to use your artillery pieces. So that's essentially the main purpose for this card. Then you just have a straight up March card. That's how, of course, you are going to be moving your units around. And as it says on the card, you're not able to initiate combat with a March card. Then you have Repairs. So I talked about... Okay, so sorry. I'm making sure I... Oh, no, yeah, these are the Spanish cards. So I mentioned that there's walls, essentially, that the Spanish player has around their fortress or Castelnuovo, and over time those walls are going to take damage, but as the Spanish player, you do have the opportunity to repair them with repair cards. So that's what they do. You have a bishop card, which allows you to heal your units that have pieces here, which allows you to essentially do an attack against attack of, I guess, 3 red dice. If you meet the conditions the card specifies. And here we have that word that I butchered earlier. This seems like a French word, even though it's Spanish and Ottoman Empire. But regardless, it's Chevaux de Frise. Sorry again if I pronounce it wrong, but you can place one of these cubes. And as it says right here, these cubes are just preventing a hit. I'm guessing that these cubes are representing the structures illustrated in this card. So it just simulates the fact that those probably were on the battlefield and slowed down the Ottoman Empire. The beat of the drum here says all your pikeman units have +1 to hit. Gives them like simulates maybe a morale boost for those units. A mine, another essentially like damage card, I would call these, that just you can roll immediate damage against the Ottoman Empire. I think this is kind of a cool thematic card. At friendly fire, roll 2 dice, and for each enemy unit that has moved into the Ottoman, for each enemy unit that has moved into the Ottoman artillery line of fire. So that's more of what's, I think, classified as a reaction card, and I think, again, that's kind of thematic that as the Ottoman forces are approaching, I could imagine historically there was some chaos, and that friendly fire was a real thing that was happening for if people weren't being careful. And the and I wish I knew how to say that word. The arquebusiers. When Ottoman units move to a zone adjacent to your arquebusiers, reveal them to fire at them. Take into account the height difference of your arquebusiers plus 1 bonus to hit. So basically a card specifically for that one type of unit for the Spanish player. And there's more. I understand I haven't really explained in detail how the game works, so I don't know if it's very helpful to go through any the additional cards, but I just wanted to illustrate the cards are very thematic as well as very different from what the Ottoman player has in their deck. So they, for example, have a storm card, civilian. They also have some cards that are similar but different. Like their March card here is different than the March card the Spanish player has, because for the Ottoman Empire it says 2 trench points. You may also deploy or move 1 battery. So whereas the March card doesn't, like the Ottoman Empire has the trench components in this game. And then they have like completely unique cards, like this one for the faith, and they also actually have a fire device card, but their fire device card again has this additional option of 1 trench point and deploy or move 1 battery. So I won't go into detail to describe all the Ottoman Empire cards, but again, mainly just want to showcase that they're asymmetric from what the Spanish player has. Okay. And now I think what I want to do next is just open the board here and open it up so you guys can all see it in all its glory. It's again, this is not a final copy of the game, but I would say that this board is pretty nice. So if this was, to me this is definitely final quality. Definitely one of those boards that you may have to flatten out a little bit or use those plastic, I don't even know what they're called, board clamps to keep the board flat for at least those first initial plays of the game. But beyond that, you can see it's nice and spacious, and here we have kind of the epicenter of all the conflict. This is what the Ottoman Empire is going for, and essentially their objective is, I think, to take, I don't know if they need to take out all 3 of the, it says, okay. It actually says right here, in addition, the 3 zones with resistances of 2 and 3, so here, here, and here, marked with a red star, are the zones that the Ottoman army must occupy at the end of any round to win. So that's how the Ottoman win, and basically, you're, as the Spanish player, trying to prevent that from happening. And I think your goal is to just I don't know, maybe I can quickly find it, how many casualties you're trying to achieve for a Spanish victory, but I believe that's kind of what you're going for as the Spanish player, is to try and just want to quick find the victory condition for the Spanish. Goal of the game. Okay. Well, I should mention they have 2 different kind of scenarios you could play. There's the introductory scenario and the main scenario. And it says in the introductory scenario, the objective of the Spanish player is to occupy the 3 zones of the Castelnuovo fortress marked with red stars. The Turkish player wins if the Christians fail to achieve their goals. The scenario is described at the end of this booklet in the appendices. But in the main scenario, it says it depicts the siege of the Spanish garrison by the Turkish forces. In this scenario, the goal of the Turkish players is to eliminate all Spanish blocks or to occupy the 3 zones that I was just talking about. The Spanish player wins if the Ottoman casualty track reaches phase 12. So that's what this track, I assume, is for. That goes up to 12. So yeah, this is the board. And the only remaining component in the box then is the sticker oh yeah, well, not the last one actually. So we have the sticker sheet. These are stickers that are going to go on the blocks. And if you've never really played a block traditional, I think of Columbia games for whatever reason when it comes to block games. I don't know if they pioneered the idea of the block, but you can imagine one of these stickers. Let's just say this sticker on one side of this block, and the pips or the circles represent the power of the unit. The more power, the more dice they're rolling. I believe it's 1-to-1 for each pip. You're rolling 1 die. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's how it is. And then as these units take damage, you would rotate the block to, if they take 1 damage, then they're down to 2 circles, and if they take another damage, they're down to 1, and you just rotate the block accordingly. And as I also said, you only put stickers on one side of the block, so when you first set up the game, you're going to have your blocks out in a certain fashion, and as a Spanish player, you can imagine, let's say the stickers on this side of the block, and then a blank side's on this side, so the Ottoman Empire player is not going to know what type of unit you have behind, what type of unit these are until they're close enough for combat. And that kind of introduces this fog of war element to the game. So that's, I think, I would say kind of a common aspect of block games in general, is to introduce by nature there's this fog of war aspect because the unit type is hidden from the opposing player until you finally start attacking each other. Okay, so that's the stickers for the game. Oh, and then also just want to, highlight the fact that you have the units. There's different types of units too. So there's pikemen, and then ranged units with rifles, and then you have a cavalry unit there for the Spanish, and then you can see a few different types of units for the Ottoman player. And this unit type is important because in the, maybe it says on the player aid, yes it does. Yeah. So here I'll just, and this is the last component of the game as well, is this player aid sheet. But when you are doing combat, there's this combat priority. So basically this is what determines who gets to attack when. So if you have multiple types of units fighting each other, the first thing you're doing is combat cards from both sides. So there are cards that you could play in combat to increase your chances of success. And then there's the pikeman would then roll die if there's enemy cavalry present, and it's also mentions you have to be outside of the walls and bastions, and that just, in my mind, thematically is representing the fact that pikemen are good against cavalry, so they get to attack first. But then if there's no pikemen, cavalry get to attack, and again, cavalry generally are quick and nimble, and that makes sense to me. And then you have the ranged units, those arquebusiers. I'm totally butchering that word, I know. But then they get to attack. They're ranged, so that makes sense. Then you have the infantry or dismounted cavalry. Dismounted cavalry, I believe, are cavalry that are inside the fortress. They just automatically become dismounted. But and then finally, cavalry only if pikemen are present. So that again illustrates the importance of pikemen against cavalry. And you can see from the distribution of the stickers, Ottoman Empire has definitely more cavalry to use than the Spanish player, but the Spanish player then is the one with all the pikeman units. So the other stickers that come are the ships, as I mentioned, for the Ottoman Empire that go on the round wooden discs, and then you have the leaders that also provide benefits in combat, and they're go on those round discs as well. And I think, well, that does conclude everything that was in the box. So you can see it's empty now. And that is the unboxing for Castelnuovo 1539. With that said, as I mentioned, hoping to get this to the table tomorrow. That's now 1:13 a.m. here in Minnesota, so I guess I mean more tonight. When, like I said, hoping to play with John from Talking Cardboard. So if you want to see how this game plays in definitely keep a lookout for a upcoming live stream, because I think I'll try to play this with him in person, or play this on live stream on our Talking Cardboard YouTube or TikTok, and then we're also on our Talking Cardboard's Twitch. And yeah, with that said, thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate your time. And if you have not already, please like, subscribe, follow Talking Cardboard across everything. Like I said, we have YouTube as well as TikTok, and then, like I said, we have a Talking Cardboard Twitch too. And yeah, please, again, one more plug for the crowdfunding campaign for Castelnuovo 1539. June 17th, mark your calendars. That is when the Kickstarter will go live. I'm not exactly sure how long they will plan to run the campaign. I assume a week or two. And this is, again, published from Draco Ideas, and they are a Spanish publishing company. So I imagine that's part of the interest in this specific theme, which I think is really cool to see other publishers from other countries, of course, doing war games for conflicts that are more relevant for them. Obviously, in the U.S., we're familiar with Civil War games and American Revolution games. But again, as I was talking about earlier in this stream, that obviously countries around the world have their own important historical conflicts, and it's I think nice to learn more about the other historical conflicts that have gone on around the world. So with that said, again, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this stream quality is better too than the past streams I've done with my new camera. So with that said, I'm Nick from Talking Cardboard, and hope